Hey guys, it's Marcus Stewart, and welcome to Call It in the Ring, a wrestling recap and discussion of all things WWE. Today, we are taking a look at Smackdown Live, the 1001 episode, taking place in Newark, New Jersey. It was on October 23rd, 2018, and it is also the go-home show for Evolution, which I guess Monday was too, but that was not the focus of the show, to say the least. And it was a little bit more so tonight, but yeah, the first ever all-women's pay-per-view Evolution is this Sunday. So, how does the Blue Brand build towards this historic show? Let's find out. First, the New Day come out, and they address the Big Show's attack on them during the tag title match last week that cost them the tag titles, losing those to Sheamus and Cesaro, the Bar. The New Day rip on Big Show and kind of reference how he flip-flops constantly in terms of his heel and face alignment. And they're very fired up. They just can't believe that Show would do that. They thought that Show was cool. And Kofi says he wants a match against any of them. It doesn't matter if it's Sheamus, Cesaro, Big Show. He doesn't care because they're going to get this work. Corey Graves drops a great line saying that the New Day is like drinking orange juice after brushing your teeth, which took me about a second to think about. I was like, what? And then I thought about it, and I was like, that was a deep one. Have you ever, like, when you drink juice or something really acidic and then you brush your teeth with something minty, and how, like, it just feels, it's almost too much brightness, too much freshness in your mouth, so it's just like your mouth is on fire with freshness. That was a very deep cut by Corey, but it was funny. The Bar come out along with their new buddy, the Big Show, because one heel trio is not enough. If Raw has to have one, SmackDown does too, I suppose. And after teasing who was going to be facing Kofi for a little while, it winds up being Big Show. Kofi hit the random select on the character select screen, and then it cycled through everyone, and he got Show. And he probably regrets this because Big Show demolishes him in very short order. He hits 3 choke slams on Kofi back to back, which is of course unnecessary, but Big Show is a big old bully. After the 3rd choke slam, Big Show goes for a 4th, and that's just too much for the New Day, who come into the ring, and the Bar comes into the ring too to stop them, and it's a big brawl for the disqualification. And the villains get the better of this with Big Show just throwing out choke slams like it's nobody business. And then Xavier Woods takes the KO punch, knocking him silly. And they go to leave, and Big Show's like, nah, if Randy Orton can torture people and be just a dick, I'm going to try to top him. And he comes back, and he picks up the unconscious Woods and delivers one last choke slam for good measure. I mean, I don't know. It's just weird. Cool to see the Bar with the tag titles finally, because they were very much lost since they came to SmackDown. And having Big Show, if they're going to feud with New Day, that evens out the numbers, of course, and gives them the advantage, because I've always said that at times it can be a little awkward with the New Day, who are a face tag team, to have the numbers advantage on villains, because that's just a weird dynamic for good guys to have that kind of advantage. So for the heels to not only even it out, but to really top them, because their third man is the world's largest athlete, damn it. That makes the New Day the underdogs, which they're not. They never really are when you think about it, which is interesting again for a babyface. It's rare that the New Day as a faction are the underdogs in anything. So this definitely helps. And I guess this was a showing to kind of let everyone know that, hey, Big Show is big and bad, and he can take on all 3 members by himself probably if he wanted to. So how could they possibly beat the Bar on top of show. Tune in to find out. Speaking of tuning in to find out, if you didn't tune in on Monday, we got a big recap of the Roman Reigns situation. You can listen to my Monday Night Raw recap from yesterday if you want to get my full thoughts on that stuff, but still really sad. This segues into the Usos, of course, Roman Reigns' cousins, taking on AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan in a rematch from last week's Smackdown, where the Usos won after some miscommunication from Bryan and AJ. Of course, those two will be facing each other for the WWE Championship at Crown Jewel, provided that Bryan wants to go, if online rumors are to be believed. And this was another good match between one great tag team and two great singles talents. Thankfully, they did not just have AJ and Bryan just get the win and kind of do some 50-50 crap. This was, because again, I said this last week, the Usos are one of the best teams of the modern era, this generation, and they are the definition of a pure tag team, whereas AJ and Bryan are great single stars, but they've never teamed, so why would they be able to beat multiple-time tag team champions? And they don't. They lose again because of miscommunication. This time, the AJ goes for the phenomenal forearm, I think on Jimmy. He ducks, and he almost hits Bryan, but he's able to pull back before any contact can be made. But however, a mix-up with Jimmy going for, I think, a clothesline or something, AJ ducking, hitting the Pele kick, Jimmy ducks, it hits Bryan by mistake, which makes sense because you really can't see where you're aiming when you throw the Pele kick because he's throwing his full body backwards, so you're just kind of throwing it and hoping that the guy that you're trying to hit is still right where he's supposed to be and hit him. So that actually, sometimes accidental hits can be a little hokey because you're like, oh, you didn't see that coming? Like, you just kind of stood there and took it. In this case, this works. But yeah, Bryan gets taken down. This allows Jimmy to super kick AJ, and then I think Jay goes up top and hits the big Superfly splash, complete with a midair cock of the fist, a la the Superman punch. It's a nice little tribute to Roman, and it gets the pin. So Jey Uso has pinned the WWE champion. I'm just gonna throw that out there. That he should be next in line for a title shot, right? Kind of like how Rey Mysterio should probably be in line for the United States Championship, which actually really should happen because, for the love of God, Shinsuke has no challengers for that thing. So, like, yeah, Rey probably isn't going to win that World Cup. So if he's sticking around, put him against Shinsuke, please. But yeah, this just furthers the story of AJ and Bryan. They don't come to blows again, but they're looking at each other like, the hell, man. We go to a commercial, and then backstage, we see AJ and Bryan walking around backstage together, and one of the interviewer women come up and says, hey, AJ, was that intentional or an accident? AJ is like, that's ridiculous. Of course it was an accident, just like how Bryan last week, his hit on me was an accident, right? And Bryan's like, oh yeah, I mean, I know mine was an accident. And Bryan says it in a way to insinuate that AJ's might not be, and AJ picks up on this and is like, wait, what are you trying to say? And Bryan kind of messes with him, basically like, I mean, I'm just saying, your nose, it says that his AJ's nose is growing. Of course, comparing him to Pinocchio, saying that, I'm just saying mine was accidental. I know that. I know that much. I don't know about yours. And he kind of sticks his finger out, and AJ's getting all hot about this, asking like, what are you doing with your finger? What are you trying to say about my nose and all this stuff? And then Bryan says, oh no, isn't this how you do the too sweet? And then he turns the finger into the too sweet. And he's like, isn't that how you do that? And then AJ is just all flustered, and he just kind of storms off. And Bryan seems kind of, whatever. Crown Jewel is 2 weeks, next week, 2 weeks. It's getting mixed up, November 2nd, right? I think that's, yeah, oh, I guess, yeah, that would be next week, right? Because Halloween is next week. Still, this match it needs a little bit more. I mean, I don't think, maybe it doesn't need much more. I mean, this probably isn't going to extend past Crown Jewel, maybe. Like I said, I think Orton will probably be next in line after Bryan. That would make sense just for Orton's trajectory. But yeah, like, I feel like this needs a little bit more than they hit each other and they're not sure. Like like a good promo between the two. Like I guess next week will be the go home show, so maybe one good final like passionate promo between the two would kind of seal the deal for this match. Though I'm excited for the match because it's AJ Styles against Daniel Bryan. So, but yeah, it just needs a little bit more in the story department to kind of get it to that next level. We hear about an altercation that apparently took place at the WWE Performance Center down in Orlando, here in my home state of Florida, and between Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. And we get to see a video of this. It, I guess, happened the day before or something, and Charlotte is down at the Performance Center talking to some NXT women as well as just general Performance Center competitors, including, because I was kind of seeing who I would spot in there, and we see Shayna Baszler, former NXT champion, who will be competing at Evolution in a rematch against Kairi Sane, the current NXT Women's Champion. And I also spot Bianca Belair in there among some of the Mae Young Classic ladies. And if you're not familiar with Belair or Baszler, I'm just singling them out because they're the two that I recognize. Both of them are awesome, and they are going to be big deals when they come up to the main roster, especially Shayna, given that she is also a one of the 4 horsewomen of MMA alongside Ronda Rousey. So you've got a second Ronda Rousey basically coming on the way. And probably I wouldn't be surprised if Shayna showed up before the end of the year. So I'm just gonna drop that seed. This is strictly if you don't watch NXT at all or not familiar. But Charlotte's talking to them, kind of coaching them, talking about her journey and giving them tips. And the ladies are asking her questions like, oh, what's the difference between coming up from like NXT to the main roster? And Charlotte's just answering them. And then Becky Lynch shows up out of nowhere. And she starts being Becky Lynch. She's yelling and saying that the girls shouldn't listen to Charlotte. If they take her advice, they're going to fail because Charlotte sucks. And they should be asking to chomp. You should be asking to... You should be asking to chomp these questions. Because I'm Becky Lynch from Dublin, Ireland. And I'm done giving. I'm taking now. Charlotte, that's my approximation of Becky Lynch's accent. It's not good. And Becky and Charlotte get into a big old brawl with all the developmental and NXT women trying to separate them. And Flair is screaming, "Who are you?" Just in a kind of a, in a funny way, because it's just like, it's like Charlotte. The idea is like Charlotte is so just like so done with Becky and just so tired of her crap, and just Becky keeps escalating her assholeness to where like, and Charlotte would address this immediately afterwards. We see the video where like Flair is cutting a kind of a backstage promo, and she says what I'm saying, where she's just like, she doesn't even know who Becky is anymore. Like she's transformed into like a total monster, and for her to do something that disrespectful in terms of coming into the place where they got started and kind of besmirching their origins, so to speak. And Flair is all emotional talking about this, and she's like, you know what, the Becky I knew was basically gone, and that at Evolution, she says that she's not going to be beating Becky Lynch, but she's going to be standing over her best friend that lost her way. And yeah, this feud has been really good, and not even probably, it's easily the best, well, maybe next to Shayna and Kairi, but it's easily the best built match of the show. It won't main event. It probably should, because of the story calls for it, and it's also got the stipulation of being the first ever last woman standing match. So you would think that would probably close the show, but on Raw, you've got Ronda Rousey and Nikki Bella, who are 2 mainstream stars. And that feud's been fine too, and that's going to be fine. I'm not crapping on that match, but if I could have the choice, like, up to me, I would have Becky and Charlotte close just because they've had the longer and better rivalry. But I probably won't be the case, so I'm not getting my hopes up on that. But good stuff here, good stuff. And it's cool to see something different with, like, the Performance Center attack. Aiden English is taking on Rusev next, and I guess this is the official, well, I'll say official quote-unquote blow-off of this feud. Aiden sings on the way to ring, kind of reiterating his hey, if you're getting tired of those Rusev days, come having a longer Aiden night, which Lana is disgusted by, and only serves to infuriate the Bulgarian brute. As soon as the bell rings, Aiden bails as he should because he's Aiden English fighting Rusev, and Rusev catches him very quickly and proceeds to beat the crap out of Aiden. That's pretty much what this match is. Aiden gets the upper hand briefly through some underhanded tactics, but it does not last very long because he starts wasting time yelling at Lana outside the ring, which allows Rusev to recover and, Machka kick, locks in the accolade and holds it for a good while after Aiden taps out and continues to hold it after a bell rings because he's an angry, muscly husband that's choking out, trying to break the back of a creeper. Aiden English is almost the DDP in the Undertaker-Sarah feud of 2001, which, flashback time, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, Diamond Dallas Page, former WCW champion, after the WCW was purchased by WWE, he made his debut in the company as the stalker of the Undertaker, who at the time was in his biker American Badass gimmick, which was basically just him being himself, stalking the Undertaker's wife at the time, Sarah, and we saw these creepy videos of like home footage of like Undertaker's house and someone filming like their private moments, like Sarah doing stuff in the yard and all this stuff. And the big question was like, who the hell is doing this? And they were talking in like this deep throat voice thing, like, and now I see Sarah. Look at Sarah with the dogs. There goes Undertaker and stuff like that. It was creepy and weird. And then Diamond Dallas Page was revealed to be the culprit, which, if you watched WCW and were a fan, was a very drastic character change, and it really didn't make much sense. And then it proceeded with Diamond Dallas Page getting destroyed by The Undertaker and Kane on the regular after that. It was a very one-sided feud. This is kind of, to a lesser extent, that. Though, I mean, worse, because at least... I guess not worse, but I guess better, because it was worse with Undertaker and DDP, because DDP was getting annihilated, but DDP's a multiple-time world champion. And Aiden English is Aiden English, so I expect him to get destroyed by a two-time United States champion and just a all-around monster in Rusev. So I don't know where else you can go with this if, Rusev can only destroy Aiden so many times, especially when it's expected that he should do that. So, Aiden's gonna have to move on at some point. I don't know what there is left to prove or where else you could kind of take it. So, we'll see. But knowing WWE, this is far from over. Next up, we've got Miz TV with special guest Rey Mysterio. Miz brags about first qualifying for the World Cup to determine the best in the world. And he brings out Rey. And he asks Rey how does it feel to be back. And Rey talks about, he's really excited to come back home, and Miz cuts him off saying that it wasn't a question, and then proceeds to mock and rip on Rey, saying that nobody cares about underdog stories anymore. They want larger than life stars such as himself, and just taking a big old dump on Mysterio here. Rey says that he's disappointed because he was hoping to be on Truth TV instead, which gets a big pop and people start chanting for Truth TV. Miz takes offense to this, as you would imagine, and starts talking about how Truth TV should have been canceled and all this stuff. And then Rey says, you know what? I didn't come back to be on this crappy talk show. I came back to compete. And then he throws down the challenge to Miz for a match right now. Miz, of course, tries to backpedal, saying that nobody wants to see it, and then tries to jump Rey, but Rey turns it around and almost hits the 619, but Miz bails. We go to commercial. And then we come back and we've got Miz versus Rey. I'm assuming you would imagine Paige came out during the break and was like, let me tell you something, players. That's my British accent. Or I didn't try. I probably have a better British accent than a Irish accent. Though it's harder when I'm trying to do a lady. Let me try Paige again. This is my house. No, that's bad. I'm going to stop. Miz and Rey. This was a really good match, actually. This was their first match, apparently, since SummerSlam 2012. And this was long, got like 2 commercial breaks, I think. And just a good back and forth match, and another a good showcase to remind us again why Rey is one of the best ever. There's a cool point where at one point late in the match, Miz tries to hit a super skull crushing finale from the top rope, but Ray reverses that because he would die probably, and does a kind of like a super roll through, like a roll up pin, but from the top rope, but it's not a pin. I don't know. It was cool looking. And eventually Ray comes out on top as you would expect. He catches him with the 619 and drops the dime to get the pin. So this is just, building up towards World Cup. Though I yet to question having the World Cup people touching, like having matches against each other before the actual tournament. And this won't be the last time this happens, as you'll see in a bit. But a nice little showcase for Ray here. Good match. Naomi and Asuka team up to take on Sonya Deville and Mandy. And that match never happens because the Iconics come out, and before they can get into their shtick for too long, Lana comes out, and before she can barely say anything, Carmella comes out. And then Carmella gives us a dance break, and we get a little bit of that until Selena Vega comes out of nowhere. I mean, she's pretty small, so she's pretty easy to hide, actually. She comes out of nowhere and attacks, and this triggers a giant brawl between all of the women. Of course, building up towards the Battle Royal at Evolution, which the winner of which will get a future Women's Championship match, which definitely makes that a more interesting matchup. And it's just a big brawl with all the women, and eventually it ends with Zelina Vega, seemingly the last woman standing. She hits the running knees, the Andrade's running knees, to, I think, Lana in a corner, and she's all proud of herself. And Asuka's waiting right behind her and to kill her, because she's gonna get her she needs a new head to mount on her wall, and Vega turns around and gets her head kicked right off its shoulders, and Asuka stands tall. So who will win this? I don't know. Asuka would be a good choice. I mean, she's already won one Battle Royal in terms of being the first Women's Royal Rumble winner, so she's definitely one you could go with. There's going to be some returning legends in this, but none of them are going to win. Asuka would be a good one. I'm trying to think who else is in it. Naomi, you could say maybe too, because she won the not fabulous Moolah Battle Royal at WrestleMania this year. I forgot what they renamed it as. I think it was just a generic women's Battle Royal at WrestleMania or whatever it was. So she also has that. So she could do it, but at least on SmackDown, like Carmella, we just got off of a title reign. The Iconics could team up and do it. They'd be fine for one-off challenge. I guess it depends on who walks out of Evolution with the title between Becky and Charlotte. But it also doesn't say when that title match can be. They haven't determined that, so they could hold on to it for a little while. So who knows? But I'm gonna play it safe. I'm gonna pick Asuka to win that match. Next up, we get Shane O'Mac. Shane McMahon comes to the ring, and he's just there to hype up both Evolution and Crown Jewel. And when he talks about Crown Jewel, he of course has to talk about the World Cup to determine the best in the world. And he asked the crowd, who did he think is gonna be the best in the world? Which Shane walks right into this one because it triggers a giant CM Punk chant. And then Shane acknowledges it, saying, "I don't believe he's in the tournament," which was a nice little way to diffuse that. But yeah, he's just there to talk, just be a little hype man for those two events. And then he introduces the main event, which is Jeff Hardy taking on Randy Orton to renew their rivalry, as to quote a WWE catchphrase or tagline. Of course, these two are also in the World Cup, and you would think they would just not touch each other until the World Cup, but whatever. And this is another good match. Randy Orton again goes for Jeff Hardy's ear, because we just haven't had enough of that yet. That move should just be banned. I mean, Randy Orton's already had his punt kick banned. They should just ban his ear thing too. He gets all the moves that make you cringe. Like, oh my god. Like, I remember cringing every time you would kick the head off of people with that punt kick, and now this is even worse. Ban it, WWE. But good back and forth match. There at one point, Jeff Hardy goes for a swanton off the ring apron to the floor on Randy, and Randy moves, so he just goes splat, just hits that floor hard, because Jeff Hardy is an insane man and still does stuff like this at like 40 or 41 years old. A little kid is cheering for Randy Orton, and if that's not a future serial killer in the making, I don't know what is. And in a cool ending that I wonder if anyone caught the callback to the way this match ends, but Randy goes for a backslide, or Randy goes for the RKO. Hardy counters it into a backslide. Randy kicks out. Hardy goes for the twist of fate. Orton turns that into an RKO. Like, he goes for the twist, spins around, Orton gets out of it, RKO, 1, 2, 3, Orton win, which is a callback to the ending of the Royal Rumble 2008 match that these two had back when Randy Orton was WWE champion for, like, I think it was only his first reign, actually, or second reign at the time. And Hardy was in the very beginning of his 2008 journey to the WWE Championship that lasted a year, and this was what kicked it off, where Hardy somehow managed to skyrocket to the top, and people really believed that Jeff was going to win, and that was a hell of a build-up for that match. But yeah, that's how the match ended as well. RKO, Twist of Fate RKO. I was like, oh, that's cool that they kind of called that back. And I was wondering if anyone else picked up on that. But yeah, Orton wins. Not super surprising. Just getting some momentum. And that wraps up the show. So, good, solid episode. Nothing special here. Not bad. Nothing mind-blowing either. Decent build for the two events. I'm looking forward to Evolution I'm very curious about where it's going to go. Like, the match should be great. I'm genuinely looking forward to Becky and Charlotte, Nikki and Ronda, and the NXT women's match, and the Mae Young Classic. I still have not yet watched the Mae Young Classic. I'm probably going to marathon through it this week so I can enjoy the finals. But I've just been so busy that I've been kicking myself that I was like, oh, I still haven't watched the Mae Young things. I enjoyed it last year. But I'm very curious to see how that event plays out and how well it does. See if there'll be any more of these in the future. But more importantly, I'm just happy that we're getting away from all of these pay-per-views and we can get back to focusing on one and kind of get the builds more unified. So that wraps up the show. You will see me back probably Monday with a review of Evolution, and as well as the fallout from Raw and a post Roman Reigns WWE, and the fallout from Ambrose and Rollins imploding. So catch me next week to check out those episodes. If you want to find me on Twitter, you can do so at MarcusStewart7. That is the number 7. You can also check out my other podcast, Carving Gaming Rushmores, on the same channels you'll find this show, Marcus Writes About Games, YouTube, iTunes, and Podbean. Just search that in. And yeah, I got a new episode of Carving Gaming Rushmores talking about the best voice performances in video games alongside two great friends, two great ladies. Great discussion. I highly recommend it. You can also find me on gaminghistoria.com writing news and video game news and reviews. I recently posted a review for Sinner, Sacrifice for Redemption, so check that out. You can find me on my personal website, Marcus Writes About Games, where I kind of post all my blogs and general portfolio if you want to see my written work. And if you want to listen to me in a role-playing sense, I appear as a cast member on 2 Dungeons & Dragons podcasts. One of them is We Wanted Adventurers, and the other is Dragon Guard. You can find both of those on either extralife.com, as well as SoundCloud, iTunes, and Libsyn.com. If you love role-playing, they're hilarious campaigns. They're goofy and dumb and just a lot of great fun. I highly recommend giving those a listen. So, until next time, guys, I will see you post-Evolution. Have a great one.